Today, we're going to talk about your internet speed. What should you be getting? Is it slower because of your service provider? Is it your hardware? Or is it your own fault? Let's talk about it. If you're like me, you had one of your children come up to you and say, "Dad, my internet's slow." And then you just go into troubleshooting, mode, thinking about it. So, question is it as fast as it can be? What is the theoretical speed you should be getting? So, some things to think about is if you don't think it is the speed that you should be getting, you know, whose fault is it? Is it is it your ISP? Is it your hardware? Is it placement? So if it's Wi-Fi, is it your Wi-Fi placement? Is it interference? It could be any number of things. So really, whose fault is it? Your provider, your hardware, or you? Because you govern the placement, right? So let's talk about the ISP first. So if your ISP tells you that you're supposed to, and when I say ISP, I mean your internet service provider. It could be Comcast, it could be Spectrum, or whoever they call themselves. If you're supposed to be getting a certain speed from them, that's what they advertise, that's what you're paying for, you know what your baseline is. And the thing you always need to know with internet speed is it's only ever going to be as fast as your slowest bottleneck. So, quick story. I ordered internet when I lived in Connecticut years ago. I ordered the internet, I had it installed, and the technician I could tell was in a hurry. He wanted to, I was his last customer, he wanted to get in and out. So I already had prior hookup cables and whatnot from prior service at the house. I just bought the house, so I didn't know the history. So he set everything up, put it all together, did a quick test, and boom, he was out the door. Well, I started having speed issues, and I knew what I was paying for. Um, Long story short, I ended up having another technician come because I determined it wasn't me. It wasn't what was in the house, and it wasn't my hardware. Turned out he just reused the old coaxial cabling that was already in existence outside. And this is what the coaxial looks like. There was a water intrusion inside, and there was a whole lot of corrosion. So the actual signal was just abysmal. So replaced it, good to go. Another area that could be a bottleneck is your Ethernet cable. So if you have a Ethernet cable, and they actually all look pretty close to one another. We got the Cat 5, Cat 5e, 6, 6a, 7, and before I did this video, I didn't even know that there was a Cat 8. But basically, hardline wiring is going to have the least loss. So if you're absolutely after speed, for whatever your needs are, Wi-Fi won't beat hardline connections. So if you're using a Cat 5 as an example, and you're paying for gigabit speed, you can see that your bottleneck here is going to be the max speed right here of 100 megabits per second. So you won't ever exceed that. So know what your cabling is. Now most people will have Wi-Fi, and your ISP always offers for you to buy, well, not buy, but rent, and you pay that rental fee from them, their hardware. Personally, I purchase my own. I do my homework. I see what routers my ISP accepts. When I say router, I mean modem and router. And I do the research. I find out which one they accept, and I buy it myself outright. So I'm not paying that monthly fee, that monthly rental lease fee. So saving money, it pays for itself after about a year, maybe longer depending on how expensive it is. But again, if you've seen any other videos I've done, I always buy refurbished. Again, I don't get burned too often when I do that. You can, but I usually shop, either on eBay, Amazon, or Walmart, and I get that certified refurbished. And most of the time, the quality is there. So anyway, I bought a gigabit modem router combination, and I have that hooked up to my ISP. So it's rated at a gigabit, but my current internet service provider is only 400. So I know that I'll only ever get around 400, but I know my bottleneck is not my router, not my modem. So from there I want to talk about Wi-Fi, because everybody has Wi-Fi, right? So our friends at Roku, they show how important placement is. I'll talk a little bit more about placement and give an example from myself. But placement is a very important factor. Wi-Fi signals, they want to travel down, not up, and you want it to be somewhat in a central location. So obviously Roku here wants to try to help you have the best placement possible, because you're going to be utilizing their services, their hardware. So in order to make sure that you're streaming and you're happy about streaming, they want to make sure you know why. It's not their hardware. Their hardware is not what's wrong with your stream. It's your Wi-Fi, so they're trying to help you out here. So just know that you need to have it in a more central location. If you have a home, that's 2 stories or 2 stories in the basement, you're like me, you're down in the basement, it's better to have that router above your head broadcasting that signal. And finally, my favorite, mesh. When this came out, I was happy as a pig, and you know what. So I made sure that I bought myself a mesh router system. Now, what is a mesh router system? Back before this actually came out, I found myself, in order to extend my Wi-Fi signal, I had to buy bridges or repeaters. Your signal's weak and you need to get it to another room or another area. You had to actually build a wireless bridge and rebroadcast the signal just to pass it a little further. Because part of that interference in that distance, you lose that signal. Mesh is easy peasy. I mean, you have your standard router, which is connected to your modem, and then all other components, and you can just buy another one and add it to it. It just adds to your signal, and the connection does not require really any technical know-how beyond downloading an app. I personally have the Netgear Nighthawk, and I actually have it right here. This is one of the satellites, but I also have, and what I'm currently using right now is the Netgear Orbi. They're a little more expensive than this Nighthawk, and you can see right on here. Walmart, they're offering it, 2 satellites and 1 router, $168. I mean, that's a steal because mesh Wi-Fi when it first came out was crazy expensive, and it's still some of them are, but the prices have definitely come down. So if you have a large home, or if you have a lot of interference, or you're not getting the speed that you think that you're getting, um, you can't beat a mesh system. You just set it up because sometimes you can't control where your ISP puts your modem, right? So how can you get that top down and that spread that you need from your Wi-Fi? You get a mesh system, even if your modem's in the corner of the house or in the corner of the basement, one of the worst things that can happen, you can set up your mesh system to talk to a satellite and place one of those satellites, right above you. So it's a great option. I ran the speed test and I just used speedtest.net. I, and just as a disclaimer, right now I'm paying for 400 megabits per second. It's more than what I need for myself and my family. I personally don't ever see needing more than that. So also keep that in mind when they push that gigabit speed on you with your service provider. So anyway, I ran the speed test right next to my wireless router, and it's a gigabit router. Again, it's overkill for what I'm using, but you can see that there's a 25, 27 loss of the theoretical 400 gigabits, which is not bad at all. But even next to it with Wi-Fi, you're not going to get the full speed you're anticipating. When I ran this, I'm in my basement. I'm a good distance from the router itself. Just now, this is the speed that I'm getting from my router. The ping's about the same, but you can see that I'm getting a quarter of the theoretical speed that I should be getting. But again, it goes back to what's interfering, what's the distance, and what's the placement. I hope you found this video useful. If you need more advice or you have any questions, you can throw it in the comment section. Or if you're in the Western New York area, feel free to Google me, your local IT guy. I'm Dennis. Have a good one.